Hi friends, welcome back to Farm Girl Diaries. So we were actually just in the kitchen together filming a video on making some different creams and some different teas and doing some different herbal remedies for things that I've had pop up in my life lately. And so as I'm doing that video, I thought maybe we should do an introductory video on the purposes of holistic health, on the importance of holistic health, and how if you're interested in thinking about becoming more holistic and more herbal, where do you start? So I thought we would do a video just kind of chit-chatting on where to start. So I'm a huge believer that the earth gives us a lot of what we need. I think we've been trained that when we have a headache, we go get a Tylenol. When we have a cut, we go for Neosporin. And that's money, that's our hard-earned money that we're having to spend on these products. And there are side effects to these products. And I was one that I use these products my entire life. And it's not until probably the past 8 years or so that I started kind of rethinking heavy pharmaceutical versus herbal and the more holistic route. So when I kind of started doing some research into holistic practices, I saw all of these herbs that I saw all these herbs that have so many medicinal benefits. So we have so many weeds that we are taught to hate: dandelions, plantain, red dead nettle, clover, violet, wild violets. So many weeds that we typically spray our yards for because we just want grass in our yards. But grass has basically no nutritional benefit to us. However, red dead nettle, dandelion, plantain, clover, wild violet, the like, they all have great medicinal benefits. And so if you kind of start going down this route, you can kind of start seeing how there are so many things in the world around us that we can do for ourselves to help improve our own health, to help improve us when we get sick or we get cuts. There's a ton that we can do without needing to rush to the store and buy some over-the-counter item. So I want to talk about how to get started with this, because when I decided to be holistic and try to go this herbal remedies route, it's honestly very overwhelming. And I'm not going to lie and say that I completely have it down, because I don't. I am still overwhelmed. I have bought numerous books. I've yet to find one book that I love more than the rest, that I think is like, this is the only book you need. You can have this book and call it a day. But I have found a lot of books that kind of piece together and I kind of work together when I have an issue to try to figure out how to address my issue. So there's a lot of information out there. The problem that I felt I had was sourcing the best information, the most realistic information. So I'm going to go a little bit deep and then we're going to bring it back. So when you're talking about herbal remedies, you have things called tinctures, oxmells, oils, you do capsules. When you start kind of entering this world, I think it becomes incredibly quickly overwhelming. So there is a place for a tincture. A tincture is an infused vodka, and there is a place for an oil. An oil is an infused oil. So what we just did today is we're making some infused oils, where you take some dried herbs, you add it to some sort of oil. Today I did mostly olive oil, but I have done also coconut oil and avocado oil. And you just kind of let the dried herb and the oil sit and infuse, but you also do the same thing with vodka. A tincture is you have a dried herb and you put it into a vodka. So I just did an oregano tincture a couple weeks ago, and I just took the dried oregano, put it in a pint of vodka, and let it sit for a couple of weeks. And then when I'm done, when it is done, I strain out the oregano, and the vodka that is left is this tincture. So tinctures can be used both internally and externally. My oregano tincture, for example, I'm going to use externally as just a way to heal cuts, scabs, burns, poisons, etc. But when you kind of start thinking about that, a lot of the recipes that I was coming across required you to already have a rosehip oil, oregano, it required you to have all of these things already made. And so to make the tinctures and the oils, you have to first find the herbs, and then you have to either brush it, which is what we're doing in our second video. I have my infused oil sitting in a crock pot of hot water to infuse quickly in about 12 hours rather than in 4 to 6 weeks. So you either need to do that or you need to let them sit for 4 to 6 weeks. You need to have these ingredients on hand in order to make the tinctures. And so many of the recipes I found had multiple different oils and tinctures, and I got overwhelmed because I didn't have any of that. I have dried herbs, but I didn't have them already made into all these different ingredients or all these different tinctures or oils. And so it kind of just became, those recipes became just too involved for me. And I found myself kind of pulling away from the holistic route because I was overwhelmed. You're asking me to start as somebody who doesn't know anything. You're asking me to start with like both feet in, and I already have to have, in order to make one recipe, I already have to have like 8 things already made. And so I didn't like that route. So I ended up, not purposefully, but I think it worked for me. I went a different route that I think was an easier route. So I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about what I believe is the best way to get started in the herbal medicine route or the herbal medicine life. So I bought the herbal books, I saw the recipes, I got overwhelmed, I shut them, and I didn't open them for a long time. What I did instead is I did my honey fermented garlic. So first of all, this is my oregano oil. I keep saying oil. I'm pretty sure this is a tincture. I'm pretty positive this is vodka. Yeah, that's vodka. It doesn't smell very strongly of vodka anymore, but that is vodka. So this was just oregano and vodka. And then all I'm going to use that for is I can put that into a cream if I want to make a cream, which we'll talk about in a second. Or I can just put that directly, get like a little paper towel, make it wet, and then rub it directly on my skin where I have some sort of cut. But where I started with my fermented honey and garlic. And I swear by honey garlic. All it is a local honey. If you have honey in your life, always go local. Local is the best way because you want to be ingesting the pollen of the flowers that are around you. You don't want to be buying honey from any store. Really buy from a local farm or maybe a very local town store. But don't bring in honey. Honey has great medicinal benefits. So you want to make sure that you're using your honey for yourself. There's also, and I don't have any allergies or I would try this, but I also recommend this for anyone that has allergies in my personal life. I don't know if it works or not, but there's also a lot of stories that if you have seasonal allergies, if you take local honey, so you take like a tablespoon of honey or 2 tablespoons of honey a day of your local honey, just like off a spoon, that can help with your seasonal allergies. And it makes sense because you're putting the things that you're allergic to in your body and your body is having to kind of fight it, and it kind of helps you get over your allergies. So if you have seasonal allergies, if you haven't tried just taking local honey as a medicine, try that. But this is fermented honey and garlic, and it's by antimicrobial, antibacterial, I think antiviral. It's a fantastic source of medicine. And so what I like to do is if I'm out somewhere and I start feeling a little sick, maybe I was around somebody that was sick, I will immediately come home and take a tablespoon of this honey and garlic. If I'm already sick, I don't think the honey garlic works that well. I kind of stop taking it. But before I get, I'm sick. Oh God, I'm sick. Before I get there, I will take the honey and garlic, and I can take it every 2 hours if I need to. And it helps me fight off any cold that I'm getting. I swear by my honey and garlic. I absolutely swear by it. I don't get sick often. Knock on wood. Let me knock on wood now. I don't typically get sick. I kind of actually take this as a challenge. I have friends that have kids, and we'll have a date to hang out, and they'll be like, oh, so and so is sick. I don't know if you want to come over. And I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. Like, I'm not afraid of any cold. Because I work really hard to keep my body in as tip-top shape health-wise as I can. And I really attribute that to also my honey and garlic. If I start feeling anything, I know I can take this honey garlic and it's going to knock it right out of my system. Now, like I said, for me, if the cold has already kind of set its nails into me, sometimes when I don't take the honey garlic with me to work. I should make one for work. But if I get to work and maybe I start feeling sick around 9, I don't leave work until 4. If that cold is able to get its claws into me, the honey garlic doesn't work. Then what I switch to, I need to make some more, is fire cider. So this was full. this is how much fire cider I've used in the last 2 years. So fire cider is a terrible thing. This is not good. I don't enjoy this. But I think it's probably filled up to like here after I strained it. So I've taken quite a bit of it. If I've been around somebody that's very sick, you know, I remember my girlfriend came to work one day and got the flu at work. It's terrible. I was one that helped her get home. I helped her kind of clean out her office, and I helped her. I was in with her to get her home. I definitely don't want the flu, so I came home. I was pounding the honey garlic. I also took the fire cider. The fire cider for me is the heavy hitter. It tastes terrible, but this is what I use either when I'm around somebody that's been very, very sick, or I already have gone too far. The sickness is in me, and now I need to fight it off as quickly as possible. I do think that the fire cider fights it off. If I have kind of crossed over that, oh, I feel sick to, oh, I'm sick. If I cross over that line, if I take fire cider and I continually take it multiple times a day, I do think it helps me feel better very, very quickly. I do think the cold, even though it kind of has its claws in me, the claws aren't deep, they're not sharp, they're not really in there. So the fire cider I think really helps. So fire cider is what you do, is I do have a video on all of these things. Not the oregano tincture, but the honey and garlic, and some other things we want to talk about. So I do have some videos of this that I'll link below. But the fire cider is you just fill this half-gallon jar up with all of these veggies: ginger, jalapenos or chili peppers, lemon, oranges, onion, rosemary, turmeric. And you fill this up and you top it with apple cider vinegar and you let it go for a couple of weeks. And what happens is all of the goodness in those veggies and those fruits, it just sinks into the apple cider vinegar. And so after a couple of weeks when you strain it, you get rid of the food items, but you leave behind all of this nutritional benefit. So you basically infuse this vinegar with a ton of good, healthy things. And so for me, when I take this, I take a shot of it. You can mix it with water because I don't like apple cider vinegar. It's strong. So you can mix it with water. You can add honey to it. Add a local honey for your sweetness. That will definitely help both medicinally, but also help it go down a little bit easier. But I like to take a little sips of it in a shot glass, and it warms your whole insides. If you're cold, take a little bit of this. It warms your whole inside right up. But this is what I call my heavy hitter. I don't drink this often. It's terrible. But I do keep it on hand. I do need to make, like I said, I need to make more. It's a little old. It's 2 years old now, so it's probably not as strong as it should be. So that's why I kind of want to make more. Again, it takes a couple weeks to do. So again, that's also why I want to make more now. So I can let it go for a couple weeks without running out. But it's the heavy hitter, and I really do think that it works because that's really what you need when you're getting sick. You just want to flood your body with good vitamins, good nutrients, good minerals. And these items that we have here are going to do that for you. Another item that we made that I don't have right now, but that we have is elderberry syrup. So elderberry syrup is another one that I made right from the beginning. Again, it's something that you can take as a preventative. You can take it every day, but I kind of kept my syrup in the fridge. And I only took a teaspoon again, or a tablespoon again. When I was taking my honey, I would do the honey, and then I would do elderberry syrup. When I was around somebody that had been sick, I was feeling a little under the weather, and the elderberry syrup I take as I'm sick. So again, I don't have any of that on hand. I need to make some more. And I think I actually am going to start taking that as a preventative. But that again is another great, great thing to have on hand. And the nice thing about all of these medicines is I think these, and I call these medicines are easy to make. This fire cider is all things you're going to buy at the grocery store or things you already have in your crisper drawer in the fridge, in your pantry, things you already have. Same with honey and garlic, not hard ingredients. Elderberry syrup requires you to buy elderberries. You can source elderberries either from a local organic store or you can purchase them online. I like to buy a lot of my dried herbs from Mountain Rose Herbs. But these are a great way to get started in your herbal medicines. These don't, aside from the elderberry syrup made in elderberries, these don't require dried herbs. These don't require any special tools or equipment. And these aren't complicated materials. These aren't complicated medicines. But even though I've kind of started going into the more complicated path, I still think that these are some of my favorite things. And I will always have these on hand. I think these are fantastic. Oregano oil is new to me. I wanted to make this. I have not had to use this yet. I don't really get poison that often. I don't really get cuts or anything that bad that often. But it's a good thing to have on hand. Again, just put it in your medicine cabinet, and when you need it, you have it. Okay, so while we're talking about that oil, or I keep saying it's an oil, it's a tincture. While we're talking about the oregano tincture, let's talk about how you can take these oregano oils and tinctures and turn them into creams. So this oregano tincture could be used for internal use too. Take an eyedropper full of it, put it on a spoon, take a sip. Use this moderately. You don't want to use a lot of this, but this does have internal benefits. I would recommend you do your own research before you take this internally though. But you can turn this oregano tincture into a cream. You can make oregano oil. So instead of using vodka, you use oil, and you can make these into a cream. So that's the next step, I think, in the herbal medicine route, is you start kind of making some of these oils and these tinctures, some really great ones to start. Oregano oil / tincture is a great one to start with. Calendula oil, again, same thing. You're just taking calendula head or calendula flowers, added it to oil, and let it infuse for 4 to 6 weeks. Calendula oil is, again, calendula is a fantastic herb in general. It has pain relief, it has healing properties. Calendula is one of those really fantastic powerhouse herbs. Every herbalist has calendula on hand. But you can start by making some of these more common oils. So that was my next step, is I made calendula oil, I made a lavender oil, and then you can use these for soaps, you can use these for creams, you can use this for a lot of different things. And so you now, if you use this, so let's back up and let's talk about an oil for a second, and then I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's say you make this calendula oil. You make this calendula oil, and calendula has so many fantastic properties. It's a soothing property. It's in a lot of hand creams. It's really used to help soften, not soften skin, but help heal dry skin. It's used to help heal cuts and bruises. Calendula is in a lot of skincare, homemade skincare regimens, because it's just a really good herb. But let's say you make this calendula oil, and then you turn that calendula oil into soap. And that soap now, instead of just being a regular soap, it now has some healing properties in it. And you can go a little bit further. You can take that calendula oil and you can add other things to it. You can add lavender for a nice relaxing, de-stressing effect. You can add chamomile for, again, another relaxing, de-stressing effect. You can add other herbs and bring their properties to the table into this oil, and then turn this oil into a soap. And so now you have a soap that not just is going to clean your hands, but it adds in these medicinal benefits. You can add in these things that are going to make your hands or whatever you're washing even healthier. So the oils is a good starting point. Once you kind of do maybe some of these medicines, do a little bit of oils, and thinking about oils maybe for soaps. That's where I first started. I made a mint oil, a lavender oil, a calendula oil, and I think that's it. Yeah. So I made these oils, and then I made them into soaps. I was able to start making them into salves. I made some burn relief cream. I made some headache tension relief cream that when I get a headache, I can put this on my temple or wherever the headache is, and this cream really helps get rid of my headache. And so once you kind of start there, then you can add in some essential oils, and kind of slowly broaden your mind. The next step that you do then is, I think, you start moving into the dried herbs for teas. Then you kind of start looking more into what tinctures and oils you need to make. And then you can kind of, again, open that book back up and go look at some recipes. Now you have more of an understanding of what you're looking at and how this recipe should be made. But when I started, I went to Mountain Rose Herbs, and I bought probably $100 worth of herbs. And so what I did is I looked at this book that I had of all these recipes that I wanted to make, and I picked out the most common ingredients in all of them, and I bought them. So I have a whole cabinet downstairs. Chamomile, echinacea root, licorice root, marshmallow root, elderberry, lavender, calendula, ginger, turmeric, let's see, St. John's wort, self-heal flower, yarrow. Those are just some of the most common ones that are in a lot of different recipes. Like, I think I said licorice root. And with those ingredients, you can kind of start making a lot of different things. So far, with those main ingredients, I might be leaving some out, but those are a lot of the main ones that I have. I've made a sore throat tea, a nausea tea, a fever breaking tea, fever reducing tea, and now today we just made a lung health tea. Um, Mullein, I think I left out mullein. Mullein is one that you definitely need. But I kind of invested and I went and I bought a lot of these herbs from Mountain Rose Herbs. Spent about, like I said, $90, had them delivered to me. And then I had these herbs that I can start kind of figuring out what I want to do with them. So I got the herbs and I made a whole bunch of teas. And now that we have the teas down, now we can start kind of moving out. Do we want to do more oils and more tinctures? Um, when you open the book, any of these herbal books, um, almost every single thing that you have happening to you can be healed medicinally. So let me go get the book and I'll actually show you what I'm talking about. So like I said, I have many books, but this is one of my books. It's Medicinal Herbs for Family Health and Wellness. And this has a ton of things in it. So let me see if I can go to the index. This is all the herbs. Head colds, cuts and scrapes, croup, things for babies, colic, vomiting, tooth conditions, styes, nausea, kitchen burns, flu fighter tea, indigestion, head colds, dizziness, diarrhea, coughs, constipation, cold sores. So anything you have happening, there is a medicinal route that you can take for it. So this one's actually pretty good. Let's go to like this vomiting one. If you want to stop vomiting. So here is something called a vomit quell tincture. So this calls for 2 teaspoons of catnip leaf, half a teaspoon chamomile flower, quarter teaspoon whole cloves, quarter teaspoon lavender flower, and 2 ounces of vodka. You put these herbs in the jar with the vodka and you let it sit for about 3 weeks, shaking every day. Strain and transfer to a 2-ounce dropper bottle, and then you take 1 dropper full every 30 minutes until symptoms subside if you're dealing with some vomiting or that reflux to throw up. So again, that's not hard to do. That's herbs making a tincture, but you need to kind of have it on hand. And if you're vomiting right now, you can have it for at least 12 hours if you infuse it in a pot of water to hurry it up. If you need to let it sit for 4 to 6 weeks, it's not gonna do you any good. Let's see. This one actually is good. This isn't what I was thinking it was. Oh, okay. So here is a earache pain relief oil. So it calls for 1 ounce arnica infused oil and 1 ounce poplar infused oil, and you mix them together and apply a little bit behind and below the ear and massage all around the ear. That recipe calls for the oils that you need to already have made, and so I got overwhelmed by what herbs do I buy and what herbs do I fill my cabinet with? How do I get started? So I think you need to get a book. I have many. Like I said, there's not one that stands out to me as being better than the rest. This one is a good one, though. I will say this is one of my first ones, and this one I'm looking at is really good. It has a lot of things in it. It's very good. Medicinal Herbs are for Family Wealth, for Family Health and Wellness by J.J. Purcell. But I would say go buy one of these books, look through the book to see what recipes your family needs the most. Do you deal with a lot of earaches? Do you deal with a lot of vomiting? Do you have arthritis, indigestion, diabetes, UTIs? Go through the book and kind of figure out what your family is ailing with, and then kind of pick out the herbs from there. But another thing that I wanted to talk about here is we're getting into the beginning of garden season. So it is just December, but in about 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I'll be starting some plants for my spring and summer garden. And I know I want to make a heavy, like I'm running out of herbs this year. My neck died. But I want to go ahead and I want to grow some of my own herbs this year. So some things that you could grow yourself, or you could forage yourself, are chamomile tea, chamomile flowers. Easy to grow, very prolific. It takes a lot to go a little bit. You need to get a lot of chamomile flowers, but if you keep picking them, they will keep setting them. So chamomile is a great thing that you can grow yourself. So is calendula. Calendula is also called pot marigold, and Make sure when you harvest those heads, you're getting the green behind them. Let them dry, and you have your own calendula. And calendula is a very, very popular herb. Same with lavender. If you have a lavender plant, go buy a lavender plant this summer, let it grow. Before the frost hits, scrape off all of those lavender leaves. Make sure they dry. You have fresh lavender. Mullein is a herb or it's a plant that grows alongside the road a lot of the time. So you want to make sure that where you're picking it has not been sprayed with anything. But if you're confident that it hasn't been sprayed, you can harvest this mullein from empty fields, from alongside the road. It's one of those things that grows very, very readily, and it's a common weed that people have that they don't particularly want. Speaking of weeds, we have dandelion, red dead nettle, plantain, clover. A lot of these are weeds that you have in your backyard or that are in some sort of yard near you if you don't have your own yard. Again, you just want to make sure that animals aren't peeing on them, that it's not in a dog park where you have dogs peeing everywhere. You want to make sure they're not being sprayed. You want to kind of source them as organically as possible. But if you have a field across from you that never gets sprayed and you don't see any dogs running around in it, go pick these things from this field. It's a great way to source these herbs that you use often as organically as possible. Some other things, echinacea root. You can grow the flower and you can harvest the root. I grow the flower. I haven't harvested the root because I like the flower. But mint leaves, raspberry leaves, oregano, most of your culinary herbs also have medicinal purpose as well. So these are things that you can grow yourself. You can preserve, dry, dehydrate them. Don't dehydrate, just dry. Dehydrate does take away some of the nutritional value when you're trying to use it for a medicinal purpose or even for a culinary purpose. But these are all herbs that you use in the medicinal world that you can source for yourself. So if you're thinking about getting started with a herbal apothecary, I highly recommend it. I think it's intimidating. I think it's overwhelming. But start slowly. And again, I would say start with those ferments, that honey and garlic ferment, the elderberry syrup, not a ferment, but the elderberry syrup. Start with the what's this called? Fire cider. This is a ferment. Start with the fire cider. Start with these. Get used to them. And then slowly maybe start buying some of these herbs. If you are a gardener, start looking into what herbs you can plant and what flowers you can plant for medicinal benefits. That's a huge thing I think about when I'm planting plants. I look for plants that have a medicinal benefit. And so you can really start doing a lot of these things now and kind of preparing and slowly start building up your herbal medicine cabinet. Pick out the things that you know that you need. If you use a lot of Neosporin, if you have kids that get a lot of cuts, there are recipes in a lot of books. Let's see if there's one in this one for Neosporin. Let's see. Like here is some recipes if you get a kitchen burn. So the kitchen burn salve is comfrey leaf, chickweed leaf, plantain leaf, St. John's wort leaf, olive oil, beeswax, and lavender or lemon balm essential oil. Well, comfrey you can grow. Chickweed, I actually don't know what chickweed. Oh, I do know what chickweed is. Chickweed is a weed that I have that grows. Plantain leaf grows here at St. John's wort. I planted that. That didn't actually take off, but you can plant that in your garden. So those are all things that you can plant yourself or that grow as weeds that you can turn into a salve to help. For this case, if you have a kitchen burn, there is one in here too for if you have like a cut. Let me see if I can find it. Bites and stings. There are some creams for bites and stings. Oh, here is an antiviral cream. Here's just a regular antiviral cream. It's a previously prepared lemon balm tincture. That's where I kind of get overwhelmed. But now that I have enough of a knowledge, if I know that I want to kind of make this antiviral cream, I could make that lemon balm tincture in advance. I grow lemon balm, make that quick tincture, and then I can turn it into this antiviral cream. It's additionally St. John's wort, Lamatin root, I don't think I said that right, cocoa butter, shea butter, beeswax, and water. So very easy to make that antiviral cream. So there are a ton of things in here. and in the medicinal world that can help you with anything that you're experiencing in your own household. So I would recommend starting, but start in small. Don't allow yourself to get overwhelmed. If you start getting overwhelmed, back up a couple steps. Back up to these medicines. If we've already done these medicines and you're still getting a little overwhelmed, back up again. Let's look at teas. For me, I get overwhelmed when I see the tinctures and the oils. I get overwhelmed there. But back up and do some teas. Make a list of things you want to grow this year, or you want to learn how to forage this year. The herbal apothecary is something that takes time. It takes time to build. It takes time to build that knowledge. But it's definitely something that I think is worth trying. I think it's worth experimenting with. I think it is worth learning how to do. Always do your own research though. Never just listen to me. I don't know anything. Never listen to just a book. Never listen to another YouTuber. Always do your own research too before you take anything, especially internally. Some things can work against you if you're on blood thinners or if you're on other medicines. You don't need to be using some of these herbal medicines. So again, always do your own research and be confident in what you're doing. And while that concept is overwhelming, this is definitely doable. It's definitely something that I would recommend you do. Even if you just get to these medicines and you stop here, I think this is better than nothing. If you don't want to do the teas, if you're not trying to cure earaches holistically, there are different ways that you can be holistic. And I think any way that we can be herbal and holistic without needing to go to the drugstore to buy something over the counter, I think it's always a benefit. No matter how little or how much we do, I think it's worth doing. So I would recommend starting to think about how you can add herbal apothecary to your home, on what level that means. Do you just want to do teas? Do you want to go and do creams and salves and lotions? Do you just want to do some of these easier fermented medicines? Start thinking about it. Start playing it around in your head, and then come back to this next video where we're going to make 2 creams. So we're actually in the process of making 2 infused oils right now. We're going to make 2 creams, and we made a tea to help with some things that I have going on. And so you can see, if you're curious or if you're still feeling overwhelmed, you can kind of come back and see how involved this is. I do at this point have a substantial medicine cabinet full of dried herbs. Like I said, I bought it in one kind of lump purchase, but I do need to start replenishing. I've used a lot, so I need to start replenishing. You can either jump in with both feet and kind of go that way, or you can start slowly. So I recommend doing some research and see that this is something that you want to do. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, kind of try to figure out a way to step yourself through it so you're not getting overwhelmed. I think it's incredibly worthwhile. So thank you guys for joining me. I'll see you guys on the next video where we make these creams and these teas. Bye, friends.